So Warner Brothers has released a deleted scene from The Batman where, spoiler alert, he in talks to the Joker about the Riddler and his killings and is trying to get his insight. And we already knew of this scene's existence because Matt Reeves has actually talked about it before, and he's kind of described it and explained his take on the Joker. And he even said that he was planning on releasing it. So we finally got it, and I think that it is cool. I'm seeing a lot of weird conversations surrounding this whole thing where like I'm already seeing people comparing it to like Heath Ledger's Joker. Um, we haven't gotten enough of this Joker to make that comparison. Like we haven't gotten a project where the Joker is like an active part of it. I'm like, can we just calm down and just kind of look at it on its own merits? Like can we just maybe do that? I don't know. And in that, I like what we're seeing so far. I think that the Joker is a character that at this point, I he's kind of oversaturated. I mean, he just is like he is pretty much in a lot of cartoons, movies, TV shows. Like it's just a character that is like the more that Warner Brothers has used him, the more I think more difficult it's become for the character to feel like special, for it to be like, "Oh my gosh, it's the Joker," right? So like that sort of mindset is kind of where I'm at right now. So it is hard for me to, kind of look at this and be like, "Ooh, it's the Joker." But I I do like it. I think it is good. I think Barry Cogan, I like his take on it. I like Matt Reeves' take on it. I actually really appreciate Matt Reeves' just his seeming approach to a lot of these villains where, when you look at the Joker and you look at the Riddler, they do feel like genuinely unwell. Like they look genuinely unhinged. I'm like, yeah, these guys they probably should be in Arkham Asylum, right? Whereas when you look at somebody like the Penguin, I'm like, okay, like obviously that guy's like an evil mobster or whatever, but he can go to like Blackgate prison, right? He doesn't necessarily need to go to Arkham Asylum, and I do appreciate that about his villains, where I'm like, yeah, these guys are like genuinely unhinged, because kind of when you look at like the Nolan Joker and like the Nolan Scarecrow and like these guys that I feel like are like really crazy, I'm like, I don't know that the Joker, like, he was obviously evil, right? And he had this sort of demented view of the world, but I know he didn't necessarily feel like crazy to me. Like I'm like he was very menacing, but I don't know that I got the idea of like, oh yeah, you need to go to Arkham Asylum. Like I feel like you could have tossed Heath Ledger's Joker into Blackgate prison. I feel like he would have been all right in there. And even like the Scarecrow, right? Um, but yeah, I do like that. So far, the Riddler and the Joker, they're like unsettling. So I think that's cool. I really dig the look of him. I like that he's like his hair is thinning and he has just this messed up face. And Matt Reeves has talked about it where apparently this Joker was not like thrown into an acid bath or whatever by Batman. I don't think that's a part of his origin. Apparently he was just born with this sort of deformity where he always has a grin on his face, but even the rest of his face is really messed up where I don't even know how to describe it. He looks like like the where Heath Ledger's Joker like cut a smile into his face. It's like his entire face just kind of looks like that. But then again, we also don't really get like a clear look at him, so it's all kind of like either out of focus or we only see like the top of his face or like the bottom of his face. So that is also a thing to point out. But yeah, he looks creepy, which I like. Now, the one reservation that I have is that this seems to be a much different take, right? Where a lot of the times the Joker, he's a character that you know he like we don't know his backstory, and but seemingly, he was a man who I was a normal man, and then one bad day, whatever, that can happen, and he gets thrown into a vat of acid, and out pops the Joker, right? And it's this thing of like, one bad day can turn anybody bad, and that's kind of been the theme of the Joker, right? And just the mystery around him, like that's always been his thing, but this seems to not have that. And while that does make me kind of worried, and but I'm also at this point, like when it comes to the Joker, it's like just do your own take, I guess. Like do whatever. Like I'm open to it. But yeah. And so yeah. At the end of the day, though, like I like the scene. I like this Joker. I'm glad we watched this scene. Like I'm glad they released it, but I'm also happy that it wasn't in the movie, because I do feel like this scene accomplishes kind of the same thing that the Riddler interrogation and the third act of the movie accomplishes, where that interrogation with the Riddler, that was Batman kind of looking into the mirror and seeing the effect that he's had on the city, the way that he has inspired the Riddler, and the way that in a lot, like he's seeing what he has done, right? The fact that Joker kind of just spells that out in this scene is a bit like that would have made that Riddler interrogation scene very like anticlimactic and not nearly as effective, because it would have been like, oh yeah, I mean we got that from from the Joker scene. So I'm glad it wasn't in there, because it would have undercut sort of the that Riddler scene. And obviously, like, the Riddler scene is the one that, like, he's the main villain of the movie, so he should have the scene where he's kind of confronting Batman with this reality. So yeah. Either way, I'm definitely intrigued by this iteration of the Joker, and I will say, the fact that Matt Reeves has been very open about this Joker, about his thoughts about, his take on the Joker, that has kind of made people kind of assume that Joker is going to be the villain in the next Batman movie. I'm not so sure about that, because listen, people are already comparing this movie to The Dark Knight. Like, it's like, you'd think you'd be comparing the Batman to like Batman Begins, but people are already going like, is it as good as The Dark Knight? Which I do think is a testament to how good this movie is. But it's like, making the Joker the villain in your sequel is only going to make people go crazy with those comparisons. So now, granted, not that should be like how you decide what direction you go in, right? Like, again, like, actually, now that I think about it, like, no, Matt Reeves should just make the movie that he wants to make. But I don't necessarily know that he will, because he has spoken about how he's been very like upfront, like, hey, that scene at the end of the Batman, where Riddler and Joker are like talking or whatever, that's not necessarily like an MCU style hint that, ooh, this is the next movie. That scene was, he's talked about how that scene was really there to kind of just show that there is trouble brewing in Gotham City, right? How Batman can't just go off with Catwoman at the end, because he needs to stay here and protect the city. And that scene is just kind of there to be like, yeah, no, this city is messed up. Batman needs to stay here. And he's been very adamant about how, I don't even know what the next movie is. Joker might not be in it. So my usual reaction to that would be, nonsense, you're just trying to mislead us. But remember, there is that HBO Max Arkham show coming, right? There's going to be an Arkham show on HBO Max centered around Arkham Asylum. That maybe this Joker is going to be more heavily featured in that show, and which would then leave the Batman movie to introduce other villains, and again, not be so directly compared to The Dark Knight. And maybe it'll all lead to a trilogy ender with Batman and Joker, right? I feel like that would maybe work more, but then again, this is all speculation, right? Who knows what they're going to do next. But either way, I really enjoyed the scene. I'm liking Barry Keegan Michael Key's take on the Joker. I like how Matt Reeves is handling his villains. And yeah, let me know what you thought of this, or any of my other thoughts of where you think we can see the Joker next in the comments down below. Subscribe, leave your thoughts, tell me what you think, and goodbye.